We call the meeting of the North Syracuse Central School District Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're going to begin with a moment of silence for the following. Lori Case, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Catherine Mayer, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Marilyn Michaels, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. John Sikowski, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Rosemary Sindone, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Edwin Lewick, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. David Saber, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Deborah Bobo, a former employee of the North Syracuse Central School District. And Daniel Griffith, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Thank you. Okay, we're going to begin with a presentation or kind of a proclamation in recognition of something pretty amazing. We should have Joanne Thornton here, who is one of our own, a health teacher at the high school, correct? So I'm going to read this. This is in recognition of and appreciation for your administration of CPR and successful life-saving efforts for another member of the community on October 2022. You're to be commended for your knowledge and application of these essential skills. The North Syracuse Central School District is proud to recognize your selfless actions and to have you as a valued employee. So we're going to give you this, but I read the account of this and just it's just one of those good news things that are happy endings. So thank you very much. We'll bring this up. Congratulations. This is Mr. Landers. Mr. Landers? Yes. Thank you for being here. Joanne, we just want to recognize you because this is an amazing feat. And the fact that you're one of our faculty members makes us as proud as can be. And you did not know, but we had invited Mr. Landers and we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to say hello. That's good. That's good.
I
think we're gonna get a picture if we can.
They want a picture. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a superintendent. Thank you. Okay, we're going to attempt to move along here on budget assumptions. So Mr. Keegan has a few early budget assumptions for us for the 2023-2024 school year. So as Mr. Keegan is queuing things up, so that everyone knows, we're going to
not just tag team. I think between Mr. Keegan, myself, and Mr. Leahy, there's different parts of the presentation that we're going to take turns. So I'm going to start off, and this is the budget assumptions with fund balance and reserve projections. And we just want you to be prepared. There's lots of data ahead, and what we want to do, we want to kind of walk through to see if we can simplify some things for everyone. So the first thing that we're opening up with is, as everyone knows, we have a highly inflationary environment, and due to the tax cap, we're unable to pass the increased cost on the local taxpayers. We must absorb the cost ourselves. The second thing is we're in full employment. We're employing as many people as we can, and there just are not enough people to fill some of the jobs. We're looking, we post, and sometimes we've been struggling and trying to, there have been positions that have remained open. We've had years of declining enrollment. Yes, Mr. Crabtree has kept us to task, and we believe that enrollment is leveling off. And we were feeling that way before the issue with Micron, and with the enrollment, we'll see some enrollment numbers in this, but there are some other things that we're going to be preparing for the board in regard to enrollment in a future meeting. The federal stimulus aid will be ending 9/23 for CURSA and 9/24 for ARP. As many of you've known from the presentations, we've added positions with social emotional, family engagement specialists, social workers, many of the things in the stimulus. We've after school and summer programs in those grants. So trying to figure out how to sustain those positions, and that where that money is going to be key. We have a number of labor contracts that will be negotiated this year, 22-23, and the balance of 23-24. Our budget will reflect higher labor costs. So the agenda that we're going to follow, there's many things as far as economic factors, enrollment, revenue assumptions, foundation aid, federal stimulus, expenditures, fund balance, 23-24 budget priorities, and a timeline.
So I'll start by talking a little bit about CPI. We've talked about this every year. The Consumer Price Index is used to drive the tax cap. So tax cap, which the main part of that is the allowable levy growth factor, and that can't go up any more than 2% or inflation, whichever is lower. And so our allowable growth factor is going to be 2%, which is about 5.1% lower than inflation. So looking at inflation, all items 7.1% for the last 12 months ended November 22. Food, energy, and all other items, you can see where they are, and the source of this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. New York State is currently saying they're going to be okay for this fiscal year. That I think they're going to have a balanced budget, meaning a balanced budget for their year ended March 31st. But they are projecting deficits in 24, 25, 26, and 27. And they reflect, I think, the loss of federal stimulus money and the uncertainty regarding the national economy. So talking about the economy, and one of the reasons we focus on this is that the local economy has an impact on unemployment, enrollment, and growth and decline of our tax base, all of which weigh in on our budget or impact our budget. So just to start off, I mean, consistent with the national and state economy, our economy's prospered since the end of COVID-19, despite the inflationary environment. There's been a significant amount of activity around Micron, but we don't think at this early stage it's going to have a material impact on our 23-24 budget. Just hasn't, not enough has happened yet, but it's something that's going to impact future budgets, obviously. The labor market, as Dan said, is extremely tight, and it is creating a tremendous amount of pressure on finding employees, and it's a source of great stress, and it's specifically substitutes in all areas. We're also seeing, we don't like to talk about assessments and equalization rates, but our tax base is impacted by increased property values, and we're seeing increased property values. We're seeing increased housing development and increased home prices. And there's a decent increase in rental property rates as well. And we are seeing the usual amount of tax certiorari cases where people are concerned about their assessments. So all of that is churning, and all that'll be factored into how our tax levy is allocated out to our taxpayers. This chart speaks for itself. I think if you look at that annual average on the right, this is our unemployment rate by month since 2015, and 2.5%. That is more than full employment. When Dan referenced earlier our full employment, the Federal Reserve economists consider full employment at unemployment rates of 4.1 to 4.7, and we are well below that, and hence our inability to find employees. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Leahy to talk a little bit about enrollment.
Thanks, Don. I want to touch base on three things here. One is programming, one is building usage enrollment within buildings. And another one is simply looking at projections moving forward in this environment, with change in the future. So the first one is our enrollment breakdown, and this is about programming. So what we can see here is the blue line running across the middle is students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And we can see in 2015 on the left-hand side, running along that line, its rate increased from around 38% to just over 42% as we move forward. The red line here is our students with disabilities, students who have IEPs, and we can see an uptick there as well. The green line on the bottom running from 2015 to 2022 are students who are English language learners. And what's interesting is although that line is the closest to the bottom and it's only 2.3%, it's actually our fastest growing program, as it's gone from less than 1% to 2.3%. So don't let it deceive you. Moving on to the next slide. This is an intriguing one as well. And what we see here is the number of births within the district and kindergarten enrollment. And if you look at the bottom lines, you'll see the orange one is a kindergarten enrollment number to live birth ratio over the number of births. So what we find is that about 90% or so of the students who are born in our district will eventually enroll in our district, which shows some stability and some opportunities to predict what enrollment will be like several years later. But if you look at the lines across the top, number of births in 2006, we've got 641, 2021, we're at 610. And we look at kindergarten enrollment in 2008, we at 578, and we run across that line, we're at 568. So there's been some stability in terms of entering our school district and some opportunities to predict what things will look like a few years after students are born or children are born and become students. We move forward to the next one. Here's a snapshot of our district enrollment, and we can see from 2016 to 17 through where we are now, 22, 23, we've seen some loss. There's been some decline, 2019, 2020, 2021, years associated with COVID, where we did see an uptick in students either register in virtual learning with OC and BOCES or moving towards home instruction, and just some loss within the county and upstate New York. What we're hoping to see is over time that this will stabilize and possibly even increase as things change in the future. Now, it is important to note that these numbers do include, they do not include our universal pre-K students, but they do include NSCSD as part of our district enrollment. So drilling down closer at the building level, there's some things to note. If we look overall with our elementary schools, what we can find is that as a district, we've lost about 10% of our elementary students. The schools that have lost the most students are 18% at Roxborough Road Elementary, 17% Allen Road. And interestingly, Smith Road has actually increased by about 5% of its student body, and that's primarily due to the English language learner program being shifted to that building. But overall, you can see the losses. And again, Allen Road, Roxborough Road, having the largest, most significant losses for our elementary schools. If we go to the next slide, we can look at our secondary. And what we find with our secondary enrollment is a very similar story about an overall loss of 9%. 12% at Roxborough Road Middle School, 11% at CMS, 10% at Gillette Road, and about 3% at the junior high school. And again, that's from 2018 to 2022. So we see very similar kind of a reduction in our student body, around 10% for both the elementary schools as well as our intermediate and secondary schools. One of the things that's, I think, one of the most valuable pieces of data is looking at our pre-K enrollment. If you look at the top chart here, what we find is 2018 to 2022, NSCEP has increased. It had a really difficult year, 2020, and 2021, we saw an uptick, and it's actually higher. One of the things we've done for this year, which is accounted for below, is we've actually shifted the UPK program there. So we're really excited because now we have 5 sites, one at Roxborough Road Elementary, one at Westminster, 2 Learn as You Grow at South Bay and Elta, and NSCEP. So as we've expanded the program, what we're finding is quite a few students not only enrolling, but they're going full day. So if you look at the bottom chart, that orange indicates the number of students that have gone from full day. So in 2018, we didn't have any students. The program wasn't available. The funding wasn't there. 2022, we've gone from 0 to 284. And I give a lot of credit to Mr. Stone, Mr. Keegan, as well as our partners, the Y, Westminster, Learn as You Grow, and NSCEP, for supporting those programs, creating opportunities, finding space, hiring the appropriate staff for it. But this is an important thing because I think this will be the future for our district in terms of students coming to school, school ready, ready to move forward as kindergartners. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Keegan at this point.
So just looking at a couple of just early general assumptions. As I said, New York State's current financial condition is good. And so therefore we expect them to honor their commitment to fully fund foundation aid for us this year. This will be the 3rd year of their commitment to fully fund foundation aid, which is a big deal for us because since foundation aid started, we've been underfunded. I've got a chart here. I'll show you about that real quick. I already talked about real property taxes being anchored in the 2% allowable levy growth factor, and federal stimulus. Dan already explained that that aid is being used to address many of the social, emotional, and academic challenges resulting from the pandemic, and we're working on trying to build sustainable programming to support those programs when the federal stimulus aid goes away. Foundation aid, real quick. I won't belabor this point, but you can see that we're still short funded by about $4 million. We're hoping that that funding comes to us this year as kind of another shot in the arm. Last year, we got $3.5 million of additional foundation aid, which was great. So that's kind of what we got to look forward to this year. And hopefully that will offset some of the loss of our CRSA aid going into next year. Here's the recap on CRSA and ARP, 7.8 million for CRSA and 11.5 million for ARP. And you can see, consistent with what we've been telling you all along, these are the things we have been spending the money on, and we are always welcome to community feedback, any feedback on how these funds are being directed. On the expenditure side, we've done really well. We've got a great health oversight committee and good partners in PROACT and Excellus. We've done well managing our health insurance costs. We did have an increase this past year. According to the Society of Human Resource Management, we should be expecting about a 6.5% increase in 2023. And I'll just point out that that's lower than inflation. So I'm pleasantly surprised by that increase. We'll see what materializes as we get further into the year. On the retirement side, where we've been told that our TRS will be in the range of 9.5 to 10. It's a slight reduction from the 10.29% we're currently funding, which is, again, good news. ERS looks like it's going to be a slight increase, and more to come on that. Dan mentioned in the introduction that we've got some contracts under negotiation. So we do know that teaching assistants, teacher aides, transportation and food service contracts will continue through the 23-24 school year with an increase of 3.35%. M&O, bus mechanics, office personnel, middle managers and principals and directors and per diem subs are going to be negotiated this year. So we don't know what those rates will be, but we'll factor those in as those negotiations conclude. And we'll have to make estimates for the plan for next year. Fuel costs, it's been a roller coaster, honestly, of trying to peg what those costs are going to be. And they've increased consistently over the past few years. Thankfully, we're starting to see a little bit of reduction in those costs over the last 6 months. And hopefully that'll continue into next year. Energy costs, we are participating in the NSMIC. That's the New York State Energy Municipal Energy Consortium. And that agreement goes through 23-24. So we're going to benefit from the rates we locked in there. And that has really been a real benefit for us as energy costs have gone up. Our costs were locked in. And so this contract has really been, or these locked in rates have really been advantageous to us and will continue through 23-24. Just looking at fund balance, we don't really have a lot to report here because it's just so early in the year. We started the year out with a 4.95% or about $9.3 million in fund balance. We're not projecting at this stage of the game any positive or negative variance there. The voters did approve the use of $231,000 for the chiller project, so we got to subtract that out, but that still leaves us with over $9 million in fund balance and about 4.83%. Interestingly, though, this chart talks about fund balance around the state, and despite the fact that we've got a positive fund balance, we actually have a lower fund balance as a percentage of revenue. So 4.83% is what we're projecting. If you look at Central New York, the average is 5.53%. When I saw this data, honestly, I was a little bit surprised. So we'll see where we go from here around the state as we'll keep an eye on this and continue to compare ourselves with other districts, both in Central New York and across the state. Looking at reserves, our reserves are up just slightly, mostly due to interest. We're finally earning some interest on our reserves. So we're at, we project to be at the end of the year about $19.7 million in reserves. But again, those reserves, our reserves are at about 8.74%. The rest of Central New York's at 18.5%. So significantly higher than we are. And I would say that as a district, we're lower than every region across the state. So it's another thing to look at. While we're feeling good about our improved financial condition, we still have a little ways to go. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan to kind of wrap up.
Okay. Just go here, and with our budget priorities, we're looking to make sure we can implement strategies that allow North Syracuse to attract and retain the best people. So retention is critical because all over the place, because of the job market, people can go from position to position if they so choose. So we put out a strategic plan, and we have many different pieces for our district that are attractive. We have one of the most robust professional development programs in around Central New York. We have activities that require us to support Brighter Together, our district's 5-year plan. We're looking at our graduation rate, our reading proficiency, and emotional competencies. Other things that we're doing here are looking at student support systems, professional learning, and emotional competency. Activities to prepare for Micron are critical right now. We've updated enrollment projections and evaluating our facility usage, and we're also looking at a demographic study as well. We need to increase the career pathways to provide opportunities to students to pursue careers in technology. We need to have a good understanding of the financial impact of Micron on school taxes and state aid, as Don was sharing. And we want to make sure with that we're doing a strong education program for not only our staff, but the community at large. So that people, the pilot agreements are revenue neutral. I think Don had mentioned that. And over time, the addition of Micron to our community should increase our combined wealth ratio, which will impact state aid. Don, back to you.
So this was our first budget presentation, and we've got a lot more to come. As you probably know, our principals and directors and cabinet are rolling up their sleeves and starting to think about budgets for next year and put analysis together. We'll look forward to hopefully January 23rd, sharing the governor's budget proposal and the preliminary tax cap calculation, fund balance and reserves projections. We'll update those. Coming together on February 27th with an initial budget. And the budget process will continue from there. But I think those are the milestone dates, January 23rd and February 27th. With that, any questions for Dan, Chris, or myself?
I have just a technical question. Now, the coronavirus relief response supplemental appropriation, if those are the right words, Carissa, ends September 23 and the American Recovery Plan September 24. I noticed their usage there's a lot of overlap.
A lot. There was a lot of
So,
flexibility in the parameters of those
okay.
programs.
So that's my, concern. When we still have the ARP money, we still will be able to support some of the programs
Yes.
supporting with Chris.
Yes.
And then, as you said, in that one comment on the slide, that fund balance will be key in looking at as we try to figure out how to sustain programs.
Mhm.
That stuck out to me. That's a little scary,
Yeah.
but we'll see. So thank you. No real questions, comments. So.
I have one. So we know that Micron construction really won't be starting until the end of next year. But has there been any conversations with the representatives so far on how many construction workers will be here for the first phase? Because to your point, the enrollment is a significant concern, and I want to make sure that not only our class sizes stay low, but that we're properly staffed.
But again, at the community forum, what was told to us was that through the completion of phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, approximately 5,000 construction workers would be on site for
Every day, right?
for that
So,
entire time.
and we're expecting the majority of those folks to be coming in from areas outside of central New York. So, I mean, I guess we don't know how many people will be moving here versus just traveling here for work, but we've been in communication with those folks to try to gauge on what our potential impact would be with enrollment.
Yeah, at this stage of the game, we just know that number. We don't have more than that, but we hope to be engaging a demographer to help us really understand the enrollment and the available housing and things like that would impact. Enrollment.
Well, I think our enrollment's gonna go up quite a bit.
Yeah, so do we.
So I'm happy that we're in the position we're in right now where we have room. It can be strategic about how we handle it. So thanks.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing
Thank
none.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Okay, we're at the part where we accept comments from the audience, public participation. So before we go into that, I'll just want to mention that the Board of Education here welcomes the public to make comments at this portion of the meeting. We allot a total of 30 minutes for the period, but we assign or allot 3 minutes per speaker. So today we have two people speaking. You'll be allowed to speak up to 3 minutes. There's not going to be any responses. We will listen. And I always encourage anybody who's coming to speak before us, we want to hear from you. So please, especially if you run out of time, provide our clerks in writing what you wanted to say, and she'll make sure that the board receives that. So without further delay, I'm going to ask for Janet Andrianos to come forward. Our clerk will run a timer for the 3 minutes, and once you begin.
Okay, I would like to address the strict policy on violence that North Syracuse has. I do not agree with violence, but feel the school district should revisit the policies and just as needed. An example of a situation would be a child is bullied, then punched in the face. The child steps back, but no one comes to their rescue. They are then punched again. At this point, the child must defend themselves like anyone else would do. Both parties involved are suspended for 5 days. At the end of the 5-day, they have a hearing in which the child being bullied, the non-aggressor, is suspended another 10 days. This is an awful policy. A child is bullied, beat up in school in front of their peers, and is now punished again. The depression and isolation this causes is awful. The miseducation could follow them and have an effect on them getting in college. And I say shame on this district for allowing this to happen. I would hope you revisit this policy, take the recommendations of the school principal, the school counselor into consideration. The superintendent should not be the only one making this decision, and he does not know these children or the situation. There's not enough time for a parent to come to a hearing. And as a school district, I feel we can do and we need to do better. And I would just hope you look into these concerns.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker, Mike Bacallo, would like to comment.
I appreciate you all having me here this evening. Appreciate you letting me speak. So I am here this evening to speak upon a conversation that I had with Don Keegan. It was an excellent conversation I had back in October, and I know the information was sent to the board members. It is addressing the New York State Real Property Tax 466G 2005. Simply stated, tax rebate for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. It's up to 10% property tax rebate for those local ambulance workers and volunteer firefighters. Fellow board members, because again, I'm an elected official as well. I have a unique position of being a volunteer firefighter. So as elected officials, our job and duty is to make sure that we provide the best services at the best cost, right? Volunteers are free. That best cost was the best cost yesterday. It's the best cost today, and it'll be the best cost moving forward. Our volunteers here in the town of Cicero who are behind me, they have the same regulations, rules that they have to pass qualifications as a paid firefighter or paid EMT. So again, not going to use the whole 3 minutes. It's a conversation I'd love to continue. I will be in the back, and I appreciate your comments before. I want to continue this conversation. It's a win. It's nothing different during your budget process. It was phenomenal to hear that this evening. And retention was a big word that was used tonight. Retaining the volunteers that we have, that's a real problem. A real problem. And of course, that service is provided free to the school district. I know a lot of times, even I volunteered at the football games. That is free service that we provide. Again, if that turns into a paid, that's going to be overtime, my friends. And that's going to be a big cost onto our local taxpayers. So again, just remember, as an elected official, the job is to make sure that you're providing the best services at the best cost. Last time I checked, free is always the best cost. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we'll move along to Board of Education Committee reports, and I will start with, we have a couple policies on tonight, so I'll start Mr. Horn.
Yes, the policy committee met last Tuesday, and we have put forward 2 policies for board adoption on tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Crabtree.
All right, the legislative committee met on December 7th. We had Lisa Goldberg come in and talk about community schools, a great program in the school district, especially at Roxborough Road Elementary and Roxborough Road Middle School. We also had Matt Root come from CNS to talk about the civic program that they have at the high school and how this is going to influence. We hope our legislators had aides there to know about this. Our next meeting will be January 4th. And we're going to have Brian Fessler is one of the gentlemen from the New York School Boards Association and another gentleman to talk to us about what the school boards feel our legislative policies should be.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's comments.
Thank you. Last week, I had a wonderful invitation. Mr. Crabtree had reminded me that there was going to be a special guest at the NSCEP. And Mr. Crabtree was reading stories to students, and lo and behold, Santa showed up. And so spent a lot of time with many of the children that day, and it was a wonderful day. Also want to comment on the Optimist basketball program. So on this Saturday was the last day for young ladies in ages in grades 3rd and 4th and also 5th and 6th. The program's been running for several weeks. The back parking lot at Gillette was almost entirely filled every single Saturday. The parents and the young ladies really enjoyed the opportunity and are looking for increased opportunities to do similar activities. Want to mention that the NSCA provided, I believe it was 180 Christmas baskets that went out to families, and it was just amazing to see. It was a major production, and want to thank everybody that were supporting the NSTA as well. Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. But it was just a major production. So we want to thank everyone for all of their efforts. And the last thing I have is going around to buildings, doing a road show, because people are asking questions here and there to get clarification on different things regarding Micron. And they've talked about Chip Camp. You've heard on some news releases. So trying to go and do a face-to-face with faculties. I've gotten to about 4 buildings right now, and at the new year, we'll be working through the other buildings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bowles. Board of Education comments. Do we have? I have a few, but I'll see if anybody has any. Yes, Mr. Mauricio.
Yeah, just I wanted to add something about our policy committee meeting we had recently. We brought forward Mr. Crabtree's idea to have a student representative on the board, and it brought up quite a bit of interesting dialogue. I thought it was a very productive conversation. And it's definitely something we are going to continue looking into, a lot of different ideas on how we can make this work here in North Syracuse. So just wanted to let you know, let the rest of the board know that this is a very ongoing conversation, and will be continued to be discussed.
Thank you. Okay. Yep.
As Mr. Bowles said, I had a great opportunity to be at the early education program at Main Street, but something happened on Wednesday. About 1:40, the fire alarm went off. Firemen back there, fire alarm went off. And we knew it was not a fire drill in the middle of the winter. Amazing teachers, amazing teaching assistants. The principal was out there ready for the volunteer firemen to come from North Syracuse. It was amazing how quickly they got 3- and 4-year-olds. We got 2 floors. We were on the 2nd floor out of that building. The children I was with did not have coats, but teachers have a bag with the special material that goes around them to keep them warm. It was amazing. And Jason came over. We appreciate you coming over from the district office. I just watched everything. I thought, this is the way it's supposed to happen. And then the fire chief, of course, said it was all right to go back in. But I think our staff and the children, it was just amazing to watch it. The other day, Friday, I had a chance to go up to CNS and visit. We heard it at a board meeting, the Adulting 101 class that you have up there. It's a brand new class. It's a semester class. The teacher happens to be a former student of mine, Allison Salisbury, and she had 4 of us come in and interview them and look at their interviewing skills, and it was amazing. They learned how to change oil. They learn how to fix a tire, and there's all these things. Checking book, how to do a checking book. What a great class that you have. That should have happened years ago. And then, of course, my last one is a little political. I will push for this all year long. Universal school meals, free school meals. It is unfortunate in our district when you look in the paper and see that we have poverty, one of the worst poverty situations in the country, in Mattydale and other areas, even in North Syracuse, way over 50%. And we don't have universal free school meals. During the epidemic, we had them. The federal government stood up and paid for them. They're not doing it, and we need to put pressure on our local legislators. And I ask each of you, I do it every meeting. It takes 2 seconds to go in through the New York School Boards Association. I have already got a comment from Governor Hochul, and I also got a comment from Al Sturpey. We got to keep pushing this. We need free school meals for everyone. I sent you the article from Rachel Ray. You know, she's on TV on the Food Channel, how important food is to children. When I was up to your high school the other day, because of a 2-hour delay, there are no breakfasts. And this teacher was worried because half of her class doesn't have a breakfast. They don't have it at home. And I just want to tell my fellow board members, please help and keep pushing. You can call Hochul's local office. You can call John Mannion's office and Al Sturpey. We've got to keep this pressure up so that we get this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to, again, to go off of that, I said this at the last meeting, the presentation that Wendy Swift and Don had on school lunches shows just how many students are not eating these meals after that program ended, and it's pretty drastic. And we haven't had a meeting since the December 6th vote. So I just wanted to thank all of our community members who came out to support our safety initiatives to help improve safety in our schools and to support our athletic program with the improvements at the Gillette Road complex. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Other comments?
One, just to back up what Bob had said, I'm absolutely for that universal lunch as well. We have proven numbers, and I'm sure we're not the only district with proven numbers that the kids are not eating. They may seem as though they are because of some of it, but we had the numbers. And more kids were eating when the lunches and breakfasts were free. They can't learn and they can't focus. And that there are studies out there that show that they're even more aggressive when they're hungry. So anything we can do to support, please let us know.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none, we will move on to routine action items. Motion, please, for the consideration of the approval of the minutes of the December 5th, 2022 meeting. Motion from Mr. Crabtree, second from Mr. Thorne. Any questions? Those minutes are before us. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I'm going to ask for a motion to place items B, C, and D together. Motion from Ms. Zegru, second from Ms. Marizio. They are the classification of disabled students in school, preschool, and in-home instruction. B, C, and D are before us. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Those items are carried. E, please. Motion place E before us. Motion from Mr. Moody Wuzik, second from Ms. Kruger. We have the business office reports for October before us, October 2022. Any questions? Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. Motion will place A before us, declaration of non-marketable surplus. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Wuzik. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And a motion to place B before us, please. Motion from Mr. Moody Wuzik, second from Ms. Kruger. Okay, we have a resolution to create and abolish a social worker position. That is before us. Is there a discussion? I do have a question. I just I read the write-up on this. Can somebody walk me through it one more time? was a little confusing for me, if you could. We're creating and abolishing it the same, and I kind of understood it, but I wanted the board to hear. Thank you, Jason.
Certainly. Just to clarify that this is really the same position. What we're doing is we're creating a position a week ahead of the retirement of the person that is leaving so that there's overlap. This particular position is at the North Syracuse Early Education Program and has a lot of component pieces to it. So we wanted to create a little bit bigger than our normal overlap window. When people move into certain positions, we'll often offer 1 or 2 days of overlap. This was a little bit larger need. And so we want to make sure that we had the appropriate staffing on the books for the appropriate days. That way the new person could start at their full salary rather than coming on as a substitute at a lower rate.
Okay, great. Thank you. That clarifies it for me.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks. Any other questions? Guess I was the only one. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Motion please for, I put C and D together. These are the change order resolution. So motion to place C and D before us. Motion from Mr. Guru, second from Mr. Marizio. Okay, we have items C and D before us, authorizations for approving of change orders. You read about that in the Friday letter, I believe. So if we have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. And policies E and F, a motion to place those before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Okay, we have the policies before us. Do you have any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, those items are carried. Instructional personnel report A, a motion, please. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Mr. Marizio. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, A is carried. And support staff personnel report B, a motion, please place that before us. Motion, Ms. Kruger, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Do we have time? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna ask for a second. I made a motion to go into executive session. Just a moment. This is going to be for the purpose of reviewing one personnel matter with no action to follow. Then we will be reconvening. We'll be going into executive session for the purpose of 2 parental appeals of a superintendent's decision, and there will be action to follow on those 2. So this motion is for the first executive session. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session. Thank you.